Okay, if we're following along in the guide for the welding project, we did our STLs, our setup, our pre-process, assigned part adjacency. We didn't need to do any adjusting of B-reps because we just have simple rectangles. The next thing would be picking a weld path. And we are going to use the visualizer picker. Now basically what we want to do here, we can use this window here which simply gives us our STL, the list of STLs, or we can get those list of STLs from the setup STL directly here. Now what we do for picking weld paths is we use the visualizer. There are a number of tools in the visualizer. Under tools we have weld path, and there's 3 different methods for picking weld path. Start next end is the simplest in this case. Point curve would be more for ones where you are picking on a single part. Start next end uses the B-rep edges to pick the weld path. In our case that's the easiest method. What we want to do is use the edge of the B-rep edge of our blue part to pick our weld path along the edge of that. Let's turn the mesh on to make things a little easier for picking. Now we go under our tools, weld path, start next end, release the mouse, and our weld path window shows up. So we start by clicking the new weld path. We see this is weld path ID number 1. And we see a number of items here: start node, end node, our next node and end node, and part A, part B. You can select these in any order, but I usually find it more convenient to select the parts first. Part A is generally the part that you're going to use the B-rep edge of, so use the 3rd mouse button or the P on the keyboard to select the part, and we go over and set P, and you see the file name show up here. Select the other part and click set P. Part B is assigned. Now we have some windows here that make it a little more convenient for picking parts, picking nodes. View part A makes everything disappear except part A. Now a reason for doing that, we can restore view. The reason for doing that is when you're picking nodes, you want to make sure you're picking nodes on the blue part and not accidentally picking them on the green part. So we view only part A. Select the node with the left mouse button, and we set, and you see the coordinates of the node show up next to the start node. Pick a next node. The next node simply tells direction. In this particular case, it's not really important where the next node is, but on a circular B-rep edge, for example, you can use the start and the end as the same node, and the next node simply shows the direction, whether you want to go one direction or the other. So next node and end node. Now we have selected start next end for our weld path. We go to write and we save this in a file. I'm going to call it WP1 for weld path 1, and that saves our choices of start next end and the coordinates into a file, which we will use later. Now in this case we only have the one weld path. We can pick other weld paths if we wanted to. We could pick the opposite side or whatever we want to do. I'm going to close this now, and this You can, once you are used to doing this, you don't need to use the guide anymore. You'll just directly continue on. But we go to the next item here, and we use the visualizer picker. You see some instructions here of what to do. Basically, it says to go to the meshing predefined, and here we see weld path measures. And we select the first one, weld path, edit. Most of these items have so you select the item you want and use the edit to add parameters. Now the only thing we do here right now, we can leave the default choices here for the moment. We are using the BREP edge path type, not the point curve or some other method, and it has already pre-selected the file because there's only one, but you can have any number of files and you want to select the one you particularly need. Weld path 1. We'll ignore this other item at the moment. So close that and make. Now this set of buttons here is the usual. You edit, you make your choices, and you make, and then you visualize. So we have our visualizer, and we can see our, I hope you can see the weld path. It's a little easier if we turn on, for example, point walls. You can see we've made a path here with several points. I believe these are the same points that were in the STL file. So we have made a weld path, and we may also want to make a weld group. It's this is important if we're doing things like parallel weld paths. For example, if we wanted to do a weld on both sides of the plate, we might use it as a weld group, where two weld paths would become a group. In this case, we just have the one weld path, so we simply say make. You can visualize if you want. We now have a weld path, and we will continue in the next video how to make a weld joint with the filler metal.